Just 15 days until we start tallying up the votes. And so far, we're seeing a more than 350% increase in early voting compared to this time in 2016. The battle against voter suppression continues in the courts, with voting rights proponents winning some, but not all, of the many cases across the country. A short time ago, the U.S. Supreme Court denied the Republicans' request to stop Pennsylvania from counting mail-in ballots up to 3 days after Election Day. Big win for democracy. Meanwhile, the pandemic continues to rage, hitting battleground states especially hard. And as I mentioned earlier, 8 million Americans have slipped into poverty, with politicians unable to agree on coronavirus aid. I'm joined now by Bishop William Barber, the co-chairman of the Poor People's Campaign. And Bishop, I don't know if you were listening to the previous segment, but people probably who are fans of Amy McGrath may not be happy that I asked her the question, but I just will ask you the same question. Mitch McConnell is one member of the Republican Party. He is their leader, but he isn't any different than Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz. He behaves just like Cornyn. They all do the same things. I wonder if you think that just having him, let's say he's gone away, do you think anything would fundamentally change about the way that the Republican Party is dealing with poverty and want and this pandemic?
No, this form of extremism that cloaks itself as republicanism is a sick, septic form of selfishness and lust for power that has corroded all of them. And you really have to have an entirely new majority. And Democrats better understand that and stop playing with this stuff. These people are for real. When I heard that laughter, and you know, I'm very careful with my words, Joy. That was one of the most damnable forms of I'm so sick with the lust for power that I just don't care. I mean, and they cannot change now. They are the cause of all of this. None of this stuff we're seeing now had to happen. It's man-created. It's human being created. It's policy created. The way in which this pandemic is hurting people, the way in which we didn't respond, the fact that we haven't passed the kind of care plans and health plans, that's all traces back to McConnell and his majority that is only concerned about a lust for power and not about stimulus for the least of these. And this is a real battle for the soul. It's not just one person. And 8 million more people have been added, Joe, and I'm glad you brought that up. It's not that 8 million people are in poverty, 8 million more. We're already 140 million poor and low wealth before, 8 million more. And that's one quick thing, Joy. I did the calculation. You know what that looks like? 53,000 people a day going into poverty since May. 53,000 people a day.
You know, And, you know, Bishop, you know, we did this, Donald Trump sat in a Vegas church on Sunday. He sat at an indoor church service. You know, I don't know how often he goes to church. He doesn't seem like a huge church-going guy, but, you know, right-wing religious people just love him. And you know, I think about just what I learned in church. You have, as you said, 8 million more people slipped into poverty. You have more than 6 million people who missed a rent or mortgage payment. That means they're about to slip into poverty, maybe homelessness. There are children in those households that are hungry. And Mitch McConnell thinks it's funny that he hasn't passed a bill. And he's saying, let them eat SCOTUS. All you get is this Supreme Court seat and nothing more. I can't believe that this is our politics. I can't believe that this man anyone would elect him, but he's ahead of Amy McGrath in the polls. I don't get it.
He laughed at 46% of Kentuckians, because there are 2 million of those that are poor and low wealth. In Kentucky, he laughed at 271 Kentuckians that are uninsured. And listen, I'm just going to say it clearly. Trump went somewhere. They may put a name on it called church, but any church that was in Jesus Christ, with the person sitting there like that, would have preached the gospel of repentance, would have called him to turn around and stop killing people and stop lying and stop hurting the poor. That's why we've got to be clear. Some of this stuff is not about church. I'm glad you said religion, because it's not Christianity. It's something else when you give a pass to this stuff. And it's not about Democrat or Republican. What we are seeing is what the Bible calls legislative evil and wrong. And it's time for people to really stand up. And the only hope in this is that poor and low wealth people have the power to turn this around. There's so many poor and low-wealth people now, about 30% of the electorate, and we're working. We got over 3,000 people now trained that are calling over 2 million people in 8 states where just 1 to 19% of poor and low-wealth people voting this time that didn't vote last time can change who sits in the Senate and can change who's in the presidency.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, this is about really, really the soul of this nation. I haven't heard a laugh. Well, I won't even tell you where I've heard a laugh because I have to go to my Pentecostal roots, and some of your listeners may not understand where I've heard that kind of laugh in the face of injustice.
Yes.
I can tell you where I've heard it.
My auntie's Pentecostal, so I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. Bishop William Barber, I know what you mean. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you, as always.